Okay, today's lesson is we're starting trigonometry. I love trigonometry. I think it's one of my favorite things out of all that we do in geometry. If it's on the board, it needs to be in your notes. You can just focus on that top part right now. We're going to spend quite a few days in trigonometry. I know spring break starts on Monday, so today's Thursday, starts on Monday. We'll do today, tomorrow. Then we will come back from spring break and do about 8 or 9 more days of trigonometry. Some of that will be inverse trigonometry. Some of that will just be basic trigonometry. Some of that will be a mixture of the two. But you are copying down what's on the board. Trigonometry is the study of triangle measurements. The study of triangle measurements. You can use trigonometry to find the lengths of the sides of a triangle, and you can use it to find the angle measurements inside of a triangle. Today we're just going to talk about or show you how to set up the ratios. Trigonometry is all based on 3 important ratios. But we first need to understand the 3 sides of a triangle. None of this is new. You've heard all of these terms before. The first side of our triangles will be our adjacent side. Does anyone remember what we talk about adjacent with, or the phrase that we use to describe adjacent? Not the same. 2 words. How would you describe something that is adjacent? Next to. Next to is the phrase I'm looking for there. The adjacent side is next to, and we'll talk about this in a moment, a specific angle. The next side we'll talk about is the opposite side. That is across from. It is across from. So your adjacent side is next to an angle. Girl, your chips are so loud. I'm so sorry. Your opposite side is across from an angle. And then the last one is your hypotenuse. How do we find our hypotenuse? It is always opposite the right angle. It's opposite the right angle. Your trig functions. There are 3 of them. The first one is called sine, but it is spelled S-I-N-E, sine. It's abbreviated S-I-N, and it is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Your next one is your cosine. It's abbreviated COS, and it is your adjacent over your hypotenuse. And your last one is your tangent, abbreviated TAN, tan, and it is your opposite over your adjacent. Okay. See where it says SOH? That is just an abbreviation that maybe will help you remember your trig function. Sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. CAH is for cosine equals your adjacent over hypotenuse. And then TOA is your tangent is your opposite over adjacent. Those are just three little things that will help us potentially remember our formulas, or ratios, I should say. What you see on the board now, copy it into your notes as well. All of these tests, I'm not even going to grade. Because these are the ones that were cheated on.
Which ones? The grade grade?
All of them. I don't know that.
Well, not that I know of, but nobody has a phone.
She made you mess over it.
I was considering making this today.
Probably for the best.
That's supposed to mean.
What?
What's that supposed to mean?
I mean, it's probably best that you didn't sit next to Nathan.
What would happen?
Maybe cheat.
Never.
This guy.
That's so bad. Why would you cheat?
It is bad.
Dang. Wasteful
It's very wasteful.
of knowledge and
Paper
paper
and ink.
and electricity. Yes, you have.
Can't forget that one.
How did y'all find out that they were around?
That's my question. How'd you find out?
We know way more than what you think we know on campus.
But like, did y'all hear somebody saying that they had the answers and then the word went
Okay,
around?
here we go.
I'm not ready.
Step number one. Step number one is to identify your starting angle. Step number two will be to label your triangle based off the starting angle. And then number three is build your trigonomic function or ratio. So Mr. Schote, how do I know what my starting angle is? This that I've highlighted here tells me you're first going to be given a trig function, sine, cosine, or tangent. And then what comes next? What comes next? Sometimes it'll be in a parentheses if it's a number, if it's like a degree measurement. Sometimes it's just a letter if it's just an angle. This is telling me what my angle to build it off of is. So if I look here, sine of A, what angle do you think it wants me to build my triangle off of? Triangle or angle A, yes. So what Mr. Schote does is I put a little dot next to that angle, because it then says to label my sides. How do I find the hypotenuse? It's opposite of the right angle. That's going to be the case every time. I don't know why you're trying to be quiet with that chip. Just chew it.
I'm trying.
Okay? Adjacent. I want you to think about this. The term that we wrote up above was adjacent means next to. Based on angle A, we've already labeled one side. What do you think the side that is next to angle A is going to be? We've already labeled one side. We labeled that one the hypotenuse. What is the other side do you think that we're going to label? The lowercase a. This is going to be my adjacent. Then, from that angle still, angle A, we're going across the triangle to my opposite side. Now, based off that angle, we have labeled our triangle. The next part says to build our trig ratios. What does sine mean? Or what's the ratio for sine? It's opposite over hypotenuse. So here, that would be lowercase b over c. Cosine means what? Adjacent over hypotenuse. That would be a over c here. Tangent means what? Opposite over adjacent. Here that would be b over a. For this next set, what are we building our triangle off of? C. Now for me, it's easy just to switch my colors. For you, you may want to do it in a different color pencil or pen. You may want to highlight what you write so that you know that it's different than the other labels. My hypotenuse doesn't change. It is still opposite the right angle. The side that is next to angle C is the lowercase b. So I'm going to say this one becomes my adjacent. And then from C, lowercase a becomes my opposite. So sine of C is still opposite over hypotenuse. This time, that is lowercase a over C. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And for C, that's b over lowercase c. And for tangent, it is opposite over adjacent, which here is a over b. That's all the notes I have for you today.